The rooftop of a glass tower in Atlanta, 8:47 in the morning. A helicopter sitting on the helipad, fueled, ready, going nowhere. A woman in a black blazer standing at the edge, phone pressed to her ear, $11 million quietly disappearing with every second she stands there doing nothing. 14 calls, no pilot. The city below is locked. The meeting is in 93 minutes. The kind of meeting you do not reschedule. The kind of contract that does not wait. Then a door opens. Man steps out in a gray janitor's uniform, mop bucket in hand. He looks at the helicopter and says 3 words so calm they barely disturb the air. Can fly it. The laughter comes fast. He doesn't react. He sets the bucket down and walks toward the aircraft like he's done it 10 times, because he has. Monday morning in Atlanta smells like rain that already happened. Wet concrete, car exhaust. The kind of gray that makes you feel like the city forgot to finish waking up. The parked garage beneath Kensington Aerospace is mostly empty at this hour. One flickering light on level B2. A drain that makes a sound like it's clearing its throat. And a 2015 Honda Accord with a cracked left taillight sitting in position for 47. Engine off, completely still. Caleb Monroe has been sitting in that car for 6 minutes.
Not because he's late.
He's never close. He's sitting because Noah's asleep in the back seat. Pressed against the window, mouth slightly open. One hand curled around a stuffed bear named Captain, named by Noah, reasoning unknown. Logic apparently unnecessary when you are 3 and the universe still bends to your preferences. Caleb watches his son in the rearview mirror. Just watches. There's a voicemail on his phone. Has been for 5 years. He never deletes it. He never plays it in the car when Noah is awake. He almost never plays it at all. But some mornings, the gray ones, the ones that smell like rain that already happened, his thumb hovers over the screen for a second too long. Imani. Still there. Still lit up like something that never got the message. He puts the phone face down on the passenger seat. Gets out of the car. Lifts Noah carefully, bear and all, without waking him. Settles the boy against his shoulder. Grabs the work bag with his free hand. Walks to the elevator. Presses B2. Stands still while the elevator hums upward. And for a moment, just a moment, Caleb Monroe closes his eyes. He don't pray exactly. He stopped knowing what to call it after Imani died. It's more like he holds very still and lets the weight of things settle before he has to carry them again. The elevator opens. He carries his son down the hall to the bench by the fire exit, lays him down, tucks the thin blanket from the bag around his shoulders, positions Captain under Noah's arm. The Caleb stands there for a beat, looking at the boy, at the particular perfection of a 3-year-old asleep, the way the whole world could be collapsing and they would just keep sleeping, trusting completely, resting in the absolute certainty that someone is watching. That is the heaviest thing Caleb carries. Not the grief, not the years, not the silence of a house that used to have music in it, the weight being the one someone entrusts completely. He has the mop, he goes work to. Nobody sees him, that's the point. 18 floors above that parking garage, Zara Kensington's is already at her desk. It is 6:47 in the morning. Her coffee is the second cup. The first one she barely tasted. The second one she's using as a hand warmer because the AC in this building runs like it has a personal grudge against everyone inside it. She looks like exactly what she's 29 years old. CEO of a mid-size aviation company with 38 employees, fleet of 8 aircraft, and a reputation built on her father's name and defended by her own teeth dark blazer. Hair pulled back so tight it looks like a decision. Laptop open. 3 browser tabs. A yellow legal pad covered in handwriting that gets smaller and more angular the further down the page you go. She's not someone people would describe as warm. They would say sharp, precise, impossible to rattle. The kind of woman who reads a contract like a surgeon reads an X-ray, looking for the fracture before anything else. What they would not say, because they just don't know, is that Zara Kensington goes to the office at 6:47 in the morning because her apartment at 6:46 in the morning is very, very quiet. And she has never figured out what to do with quiet. There was a time she wasn't alone in it. 3 years ago, almost exactly, she was engaged to a man named Darnell Smart. The kind and handsome that made people assume things about him before he opened his mouth. He was with her when her father's heart condition got serious. With her through the board meetings and the legal transfers, and the months of a father training her like she was preparing for war she didn't choose. He was with her right up until the morning she signed the papers. CEO official. She came home that night holding a bottle of judge and she hadn't opened because she didn't want to open it alone. He was also right up, not dramatically, not in the middle of a fight, just packing. Shirts folded, shoes in a bag. The particular efficiency of a man who had been planning this long enough to know exactly what was his hid and what wasn't. He left a note on the kitchen counter. She has read it exactly once. She's what it said. She does not think about it. What she is thinking about right now at 6:48 in the morning is Voltec Industries. Specifically, the $11 million contract for aircraft fleet modernization that she has been building toward for 14 months. Specifically, the meeting at 10:30 this morning where she will sit across from Theodore Marsh, CEO, age 61, old school ways that make the word old school seem like a compliment. And she will shake his hand and look him in the eye and sign a document that will change what Kensington Aerospace means in this industry. Marsh doesn't do video calls for things like this. He does rooms, tables, eye contact. Handshakes that he apparently uses to determine character, which Zara finds slightly absurd.
But it is Alex prepared to accommodate.
She has a helicopter on the roof. She has a pilot scheduled for 9 a.m. She has 17 minutes of prepared remarks memorized. She has this. She takes a sip of coffee. She has this. The thing about Caleb Monroe is that he doesn't take up space, not in any way that registers. He moves through the building like water through a familiar course.
Quiet.
Invisible in the way that people who are performing necessary functions are often invisible, not because they're hiding exactly, but because the people around them have decided not to look. He knows which hallways is echo, which elevator doors stick, which conference rooms get used after midnight by executives who think the building is empty. He knows the smell of the HVAC system on each floor, which ones have a filter that needs changing, which ones run cold. He has never told anyone any of this. Nobody has asked. Months at Kensington Aerospace, even his personnel file is basically empty. No previous employer listed, no references. A background check, then came back clicking in and a social security number that matched a real person, which is all anyone checked, which is exactly what he needed. The thing that nobody knows, not Renata, just the executive floor like it is a small nation she is personally responsible for.
Not Kostwami, who handles logistics things and has the energy of someone who drank 3 espressos before discovering he actually hates coffee. Not any of the 38 people who work in this building during daylight hours. The thing nobody knows
is what Caleb's hands remember. He knows he's not supposed to think about it. But sometimes the body doesn't ask for permission. Foot training simulation room on the 14th floor. He was cleaning the corridor outside when he heard the grinding sound, the particular mechanical complaint of a rotor mechanism that's binding instead of rotating. He stood at the door for 30 seconds. He should have called maintenance. He should have logged it and moved on. Instead, he opened the panel, and his hands just knew. Not from YouTube, not from a manual. From the kind of knowing that lives in muscle and reflex and 10,000 hours of fantasy until it stops being a skill and becomes as a language. He fixed it in 9 minutes. He wiped down the panel, closed it, picked up his cleaning cart. He didn't file a report. He didn't mention it to anyone. What he didn't notice was the woman standing on the other side of the glass wall, watching him with an expression she would not have been able to name if someone had asked, because it was made of 2 things she didn't normally let occupy the same space at the same time. Confusion, and something that might have been recognition. Zaz Kensington stood there for maybe 40 seconds. Then she walked away, filed it somewhere she didn't check often, and went back to her contracts. There is a moment around 3 in the morning, midweek, when the building is completely empty except for the hum of voices and the occasional creak of structure settling, when Caleb allows himself to exist differently. He's not sure what to call it. He pushes the cart down the hall. He empties the bins. He wipes down the surfaces. And somewhere in the repetition of it, in the absolute mundaneness of the work, something in him relaxes in a way it can't relax anywhere else. Maybe because nobody needs anything from him here. The building doesn't need him to be a version of himself that functions. It just needs the floors clean and the glass streak free and the trash removed by 6 a.m. He can do that. He can always do that. Noah is usually asleep by midnight. By 2 he's deep enough under that he won't wake even if Caleb moves him. So Caleb works the upper floors between 2 and 4, knowing the boy is safe on the downstairs. knowing the security camera on that floor covers the entire hallway, knowing he would hear the elevator from anywhere on that side of the building. He has calculated this. He has calculated everything. That's what happens when you lose the one thing you didn't calculate losing. You start calculating everything else. Like if you can just make every other variable controllable, the equation won't fall apart again. Imani used to see the only person she knew who could turn grocery shopping into a logistics operation. She said it like it was funny. He used to pretend to be annoyed. He wasn't annoyed. He loved that she knew that about him. He loved that she found it funny instead of exhausting. He loved, stop. He picks up the cart, turns to his left, starts on the windows. The night Renata yelled at Noah was 4 months ago. Kib still thinks about it sometimes, miss. Not with anger, he's moved past the anger. Or more accurately, he's moved it somewhere less accessible. But with a kind of clarity that comes from moments that show you exactly what you're working with. It was 11:30, Noah. Oh, having a gut tight. Awake instead of asleep. Or occasionally, usually because he'd napped too long in the afternoon. He'd been sitting cross-legged in the lobby, socks off, soles of his feet pressed together, cupcake drawing in progress in the sketchbook. Those up his display case. Immense Solsonal models of aircrafts, a vintage Cessna 170, a Piper Cherokee, and on the center shelf, lit from below like it's a religious object, a hand-built replica of a Bell 47, the kind with the bubble cockpit exposed tail, the kind that featured in every old photograph of aviation history that ever moved someone to tears. Noah had his face pressed against the glass. Just looking, not touching. Just looking the way children look at things they find magnificent. With their whole face, no pretense, no self-consciousness, just pure unfiltered wonder. Renata came out of the elevator in full stride, phone to her ear, heels on marble, the particular velocity of a woman who considers standing still a form of failure. She saw the small person with his display case glass. Hey, sharp? Not a greeting. And a man, don't touch that. Those are not for children. Noah startled, pulled back, looked up. He didn't cry. He was the kind of child who absorbed things quietly like a sponge doesn't wring itself out in public. He just looked at her with those enormous dark eyes and blinked. They're very old and very expensive, Renata added, already moving again, already past him. The conversation apparently concluded to her satisfaction. Caleb Seymour and warned her from the service corridor 30 seconds later. He read the scene in about 2 seconds. Noah's face, the display case, Renata's retreating heels. He crossed the lobby, crouched down, looked at Lund. You can't bud. Nodded, held up the sketchbook. He'd been drawing the Bell 47. Caleb looked at the drawing, then at the real model behind glass. That's a good one, he said quietly. You got the tail boom right. Noah looked at the drawing again, satisfied. Caleb stood up, took his son's hand, picked up the cleaning cart with the other. He did not look for Renata. He did not say anything to the empty lobby. He just walked his son back to the bench on the 3rd floor, settled him down, tucked the blanket back into place, and resumed his shift. What he didn't know, what he had no way of knowing, was that Zara Kensington had been standing at the far end of the lobby the entire time. Coming back from the parking garage, keys still in hand. Having worked until midnight and gone to get her car only to realize she'd left her phone in her office and turned around. She had seen all of it. The boy's face on the glass, Renata's voice. The wake-up came around the corner and went directly to his son without a word to anyone else. The way he crouched down, the particular quality of his attention in that moment, total, unhurried, like nothing else in the building existed. She stood very still, watched him walk back to the elevator. Then she did what Zara Kensington did with most things she didn't know how to categorize. She put it in a folder in her head marked later and went to find her phone. The morning of the Vault Tech signing, 8:47 a.m., Zara's phone rings. She picks it up on the first ring because she has been waiting for a confirmation call. Not the sound of a man's voice saying the words he says next. Miss Kensington, the pilot, Marcus Fields, reliable. 20 years of experience, the man she has used for every corporate flight, only damn 2 years. I am so sorry, I'm at my Piedmont hospitals. There was an accident on the way in my wrist. It's or the sound of background hospital noise. I can't fly today. Silence. Your wrist, Zara says. Fractured. That's the source of time is how fractured. Completely. She sets the phone down. Picks it up. Kwa is in her office in under 40 seconds. Which tells her he was already in the hallway. which tells her he heard something since a voice on intercom that communicated in the situation before she said a word. Find me a pilot, she says. Now. Kwame is already on his phone before he clears the doorway. He makes 14 calls. 11 minutes. She knows because she watches the clock on her wall and counts every single tick. He comes back with the expression of a man delivering a verdict he did not personally render but still feels responsible for. Everard Church serves a sentence he is either booked or can't mobilize in time. The backup on retainer is in Charlotte for a pheasant thing. The third option had a licensing issue. What kind of licensing issue? The temporary suspension kind. Zara closes her laptop, stands up, walks to the window. Atlanta on a Monday morning. Traffic already gridlocked on every artery between here and the Voltech campus. The drive that would take 20 minutes at midnight would take an hour and 40 now, minimum. The meeting starts at 10:30. Theodore Marsh, 61, old school, handshakes that determine character, is not a man who reschedules, not for traffic, not for anything. She goes to the roof. The bell sets on the helipad in the morning light, fuels all pre-checked. It's a fresh tea. Tessa is already up there, her phone in hand and shaking her head before Zara even reaches her. I've tried the last 2 numbers, Renata says. Nothing. Kwame comes up behind them. He looks like he would very much like to be somewhere else. We could call Voltech, explain the situations. Request a 30-minute. Zara turns and looks at him. Kwame stops talking. Voltech doesn't reschedule, she says. Marsh doesn't reschedule. If we are not in that room at 10:30 with papers in hand, he will read it as exactly what it is. Unpreparedness. And he will give the contract to Arian West, who has been stealing the steel for ceaseless months, and I will have wasted 14 months of work. Nobody says anything. The helicopter sits there, mocking her, basically, being completely functional and utterly useless simultaneously. The door from the stairwell opens. Caleb Monroe steps onto the roof. He is carrying a mop bucket. He's wearing his gray uniform. There's a smear of clean solution on his left forearm. He looks, in this moment, like exactly what everyone in this building believes him to be. A maintenance worker who's accidentally walked into a scene that doesn't involve him. He takes in the helicopter, the ultimate executives, the silence that has the specific texture of a crisis nobody knows how to solve. He sets the bucket down and says in a voice, it's almost jarring, I can fly it in 3 words, no preamble or apology for interrupting, no performance of any kind, just, I can fly it. Renata's response is immediate and not quiet. A short, sharp sound, not quite a laugh, worse than a laugh, the kind of sound that has contempt in the architecture of it. Kwame looks at his shoes. Zara looks at Caleb. She does this thing she does, a full, deliberate assessment. Top to bottom, uniform, bucket. A clean solution on his forearm, the complete details, everything resembling a pilot in his presentation. But she also does what she always does, what she was trained to do by a father who built an empire, partly by knowing when to look past the obvious at whatever was underneath. She looks at his face. There is no bravado there, no performance of confidence, desperate hope that she'll believe him, just stillness. The particular stillness of someone who is not trying to convince her of anything. He's just waiting for her to decide. Which is unusual. Most people, when they're trying to get something from Zara Kensington, they lean in, they gesture, they arrange their features into configurations designed to communicate trustworthiness, competence, urgency. This man is doing none of that. He's just standing there.
Waiting.
And sometimes like Zara family, the part that filed the lobby up the intercept, thought by with the glass wall, watching his hands move over that panel with the precision of something that wasn't learning but remembering. That part twitches. She takes 1 step toward him. You're telling me, she says, that you can fly a Bell 407 helicopter? Yes, ma'am. 2 syllables flat. Renata makes another sound. This one more elaborate. The full production. Zara, who does not make impulsive decisions. Zara, who reads a clause before she signs. Zara, who's not said anything she didn't mean since the morning she found a note on and kitchen counter. Decided that spontaneous words were a form of structural weakness. Here's a self-sazer. So I fly this helicopter, and I'll marry you. It lands in the air between them like something thrown without thinking. Renata's jaw actually drops. Kwame has discovered something very interesting about the surface of the rooftop. Zara feels the words echo back and has a fraction of a second internal experience that could only be described as, well, that happened. Caleb Monroe looks at her. For one long moment, his expression does not change. He bends down. picks up the mop bucket, sets it against the wall with the particular care of someone who doesn't leave things where they can be tripped over, straightens up, and walks to the helicopter, not strutting, not proving anything. Just walk almost on the walk towards something that belongs to you. He opens the cockpit door, climbs in, settles into the left seat with a kind of ease that Zazara, even from 30 feet away, recognizes as something she's seen before in people who are exceptionally about at one specific thing. The ease of someone who is exactly where they're supposed to be. Her stomach does something unexpected. She ignores it. Renata grabs her arm. You are not getting in that aircraft. Zara pulls her arm back, gently but definitively. I know enough. You don't know anything about this man. I know he fixed the civilians from 14 last month in 9 minutes without looking at a manual. Renata stares at her. How do you? I was there. Zara picks up her folder, her phone, walks first toward the helicopter, call Marsh's assistant. Tell them we're still on schedule. Tell them nothing else. She climbs into the right seat, buckles in, puts on the headset. The cockpit smells like fuel on you seeing alone someone or something think underneath that she can't name. It's not that pleasant. It is actually almost ready. Caleb's voice through the headset. Same register as before. Calm, even. Not asking if she's comfortable. Not asking if she trusts him. Just ready. As in, we should go now if we're going. Zara looks straight ahead through the windscreen. Let go. The rotors begin to spin. Slowly at first, then faster. The particular thrum of a Bell 407 coming to life fills the cabin and the air and around them, and Zara is pressing back in her seat, not fear-phantom from the sudden physical reality of what is happening. They are actually doing this. The helicopter lifts, and here is the thing. Here is the thing that Zara will turn over and over in her mind for days afterward. It's not that the takeoff is smooth. Plenty of competent pilots take off smoothly. I said, how does it? There's no moment of adjustment. To a microcrack, the aircraft tilts one way and then gets brought back. No, the hesitation of a pilot who is technically proficient but still doing the mental math in real time. The helicopter rises like it decided to. Like the altitude change was agreed upon in advance between the aircraft and the man at the control. Like they've been here before. Like they both know exactly where they're going. Zara grips the armrest. Not because she's afraid. Because she's watching something and her brain is catching up to what her eyes already know. Below them, the roof falls away. Renata and Quam stand there in the morning light. Two small figures getting smaller. With the particular of people who don't trust something they cannot fully explain. Atlanta opens up beneath them. Highways unspooling like veins. The morning light hitting the downtown towers at an angle that makes them look briefly like they're made of something so more than glass and steel. Piedmont Park, a rectangle of green, the connector already thick with brake lights. Caleb banks left. Not a banked turn in the way that means tipping. The aircraft curves, a gentle, decisive arc that eats altitude and distance simultaneously, threshing the space between two consumer shelf-locked corridors with the confidence of someone who has read this airspace the way other people read rooms. Zara is very still. Her hands are in her lap. She is watching his hands on the cyclic and collective. She knows enough about aviation, having grown up in this industry, having read every report and certification about the files, to know the difference between someone's Fosson's procedure and someone who has internalized procedure so completely that it no longer exists as a separate thing. It's just a part of them. This man who has been emptying the trash bins in her executive suite for 8 months, who eats lunch in the stairwell, who tucks a 3-year-old under a blanket at midnight on a hallway bench. This mass flingish for aircraft look like it's the most natural act as if he says, in his entire for himself. Not accusatory, not skeptical. Something closer to she doesn't know. Something she doesn't have a clean word for. Caleb doesn't look at her, eyes forward. Left hand light on the collective. I used to do this for a living. 6 words. Said with the particular on from someone who's decided that 6 words is exactly the right numbers and not 5. 6. Zara looks at his profile, the line of his jaw, the set of his shoulders not relaxed exactly, more like loaded. Like a spring that is neither extended nor compressed but knows what it can do. She wants to ask more. She doesn't. 9 minutes after takeoff, the Voltic campus appears below. Sprosling's complex south of Bazilgad with a Joe flower pad, painted circle, or an orange and sock, impeccable maintenance. Kel brings them down. Zara has flown with a lot of pilots. She has never, not once, landed with less sensation than this. The skids touch the pad and she genuinely is not certain for a moment whether they've landed it or whether they're still 6 inches above the ground. The movement is that precise, that deliberate. She sits there. For a moment she just sits there. The rotor's slow, the engine drops to idle.
The end sounds that again traffic, but this is the cat of someone constructing site.
We're down, Caleb says. She knows that. She unbuckles, gathers her folder, does not allow her hands to show whatever they're doing, something between trembling and simply, quietly being overwhelmed. She opens the door, steps out, turns back. Caleb is already running through shutdown procedures. Methodical, eyes on instruments, completely in a process. Who are you, she asks. She doesn't mean it the way she usually means things. She usually means, what is your function? What is your role? What do you offer? She means it the way it is actually meant. Who are you? He pauses, looks at her. Someone who used to matter, he says, and turns back to his instruments. Zara stands on the helipad. The Voltec building is 20 feet behind her. She can hear distantly the sound of the lobby voices, the particular acoustics of a large corporate atrium. She does not move for a long moment. Then she straightens her blazer, picks up her folder, turns toward the building where Theodore Marsh is waiting to shake her hand and determine her character. She goes inside. She shakes his hand. She signs the contract. Marsh calls it one of the most efficient meetings he's had in years. Says it bodes well. Says he has a feeling about Kensington Aerospace. Zara smiles. Says all right things. Assessed by every external measure, completely present. Inside she is somewhere else entirely. She's on a rooftop. She's in a cockpit. She's watching a man's hands on a cyclic control and understanding. With the part of her that built from law from nothing. Tintasia knows the difference between canine competence and masculinity. That she has been standing next to something extraordinary for 8 months and calling it maintenance staff. When she walks back out to the helipad an hour later, the helicopter is still there. Caleb is not. No message, no frequency or rain, nothing. Just the aircraft, correctly shut down fuel cap, properly cockpit door latched and gone. She stands there, on the empty helipad, in the sudden quiet, and feels, for the first time in a long time, a version of confused that has nothing to do with contracts. Her office. That evening, only the desk lamp on. Zara opens the employee database. He types them. Caleb Morrow, I do have it on months ago. July story, night shift, private employment, see them most familiar districts, most basic backgrounds, social security, but cell number, an emergency contact listed as Morrow Noah, age 3, that's it. She leans back, taps her pen against the desk twice, then makes a call she has not made in 4 years. A number she kept because there are certain people you keep numbers for. Sergeant Major Diane Okafor, U.S. Army, retired, the most efficient human beings Zara has ever met. I need you to look on us, Zara says when she picks up military records, Miss Coilus Monroe. He was Army Aviation, that says on the Give a few hours, Diane says. She calls her back in 93 minutes. Her voice is different, lower. The particular register of someone choosing words carefully. You sitting down? Tell me. First Lieutenant, United States Army, Aviation Officer. Rotary Wing, 2 deployments.
The flight certification. That's top 3 present military pilots across all branches as ours.
This is not someone who's just flew helicopters.
Zara's hand tightens on the phone. He received the Soldier's Medal 5 years ago. Not a combat valor medal, specifically for saving a fellow soldier from a burning aircraft after a mechanical failure. His co-pilot was unconscious. The aircraft was on fire. He landed it single-handed, engine compromised, and attempted to extract his co-pilot from the wreckage. A pause. He got him out, but 4-degree burns on the medical pilot's hands and arms. Permanent loss of function in his hand. Monroe sustained minor injuries. By the time the review of the board looked at the incident, they concluded Monroe had done everything correct, and the outcome was the best possible given the circumstances. Zara is very still, and Monroe, honorably discharged 6 months later, did not move his contract, turned down 3 separate offers from commercial carriers, turned down a civilian flight training position paying, Diane makes a sound, paying significantly more than whatever he's making cleaning your building. Or dropped off if they military networks simultaneously. As far as I can tell, completely voluntarily. Why? It's not a question. It's a statement. She knows there's a why and she needs Diane to say it. Diane pauses. His wife died, car accident on Tonhenti. During a rainstorm. He was in Germany at the time. The son was born premature about 2 months early while Monroe was still overseas. By the time he got back, his wife had been gone for 3 days. The room is very quiet. He left out the military after that, Diane says. As far as I can tell, he left everything after that. Zaza closes her eyes, doesn't say anything. Zaza. Yeah, this man has a soldier's medal in a drawer somewhere and he's mopping your floors. I don't know what's going on over there, but I know. Okay. Diane hangs up. Zara sits in her dim office with Atlanta spread out below her, every window in every building lit up by someone she knows nothing about. She thinks about a woman driving on a rainy highway, a man 11,000 kilometers away getting a phone call, a baby born too early into a world that had already changed shape. She thinks about 8 months, 8 months of this man moving through her building at night, invisible, unremarkable, exactly what everyone needed him to be. 8 months of her walking past him in hallways and looking through his like he was effectively the infrastructure. She thinks about what she said on that roof this morning. The laugh in Renata's voice. The way Killer Man put down his meat bucket and walked away at a whole detective cupboard without a single word of self-defense. She thinks he didn't owe her an explanation. He didn't owe anyone an explanation. He just did what he could do and let it speak for itself. And she laughed. Or she didn't laugh. Nita laughed. But she stood there and she said something cruel dressed up as clever, and I let the moment happen. She never once considered. Thumbs it tapped. Close it. Opens it again. She stays in her office until midnight. Then she puts on her coat and takes the elevator down to the lobby and walks through it without turning on any of the extra lights and stops for just a moment in front of the glass sticky case with the model aircraft, the Bell 47 on the center shelf. The one Noah had his face pressed against. She looks at it for a long moment, then she goes home to her quiet apartment and sits on the edge of her bed in her work clothes and stares at the wall. She thinks about a man who used to matter, who decided that if he disappeared he couldn't fail anyone else, who put his whole life in a gray uniform and a night shift and a bench in the 3rd floor and called it protection. She understands that impulse better than she wants to admit. She understands it in a way that makes her chest do something uncomfortable and unfamiliar. She stays up until 2 in the morning, thinking not about the contract, not about Marsh, not about $11 million, not about the board meeting or the quarterly numbers or the email from her father asking how his signing went. About a 3-year-old named Noah, who doesn't know what his mother smells like, but has a father who kept a jacket, so he could. 3 days after the Vault-Tech signing, Zara starts noticing things. Not now things that were always there, which is somehow worse. She notices that Caleb Monroe never uses the staff break room, the one on the 2nd floor with the microwave that smells permanently of someone's reheated fish from 2019, the one with the coffee maker that everyone uses and nobody cleans. He doesn't go there. Not once. Not in 8 months. She knows this because she starts checking. Not in an obvious way. Not in a way she would describe out loud to another human being. Paying attention differently than she did before. Just suddenly a sound in your house that you realize has been happening for years and you simply never registered it until the moment you did. He eats in the stairwell between floors 9 and 10. Every night, around 1 in the morning. Sitting on the concrete step with a container of food, usually rice, usually something simple, balanced on his knee against the wall, completely still. Not on his phone, not listening to anything. Just eating in the particular silence of someone who has learned to find rest inside smallness. She sees this on a Tuesday. She's coming down from the 14th floor, where she stayed late reviewing simulator certification documents, which, now that she thinks about it, she's reviewing because of him, because of what his hands did to that panel, because she pulled the maintenance log and found no record of the repair, which means he fixed it and told nobody. She opens the stairwell door at floor 10, and there he is.
He looks up. She looks down.
Neither of them says anything for a full 3 seconds.
So down. She stops. She stops. She doesn't downstairs. She doesn't come in further.
She just stands at the door with her hand on the handle and looks at him and then looks away, and then, because she is Zarkazington, she has spent her entire life being direct. She says, "How's Noah?" A beat. Asleep, Caleb says. 3rd floor, good. She nods once. Good. She goes back through the door, stands in the hallway for a moment with her hands flat against the wall, then walks to the elevator.
That's it.
That's the whole interaction. 20 seconds maybe, 40 words between them. So why? Why does she stand in the elevator going down with the specific feeling of someone who has just said something important without knowing what it was? She calls Elias on Wednesday, her father, 72 years old.
Semi-retired in the Senate with times 2 board meetings in a year, and it was a really
Financial report, and would describe himself as retired the way a person describes themselves as calm immediately before proving they are not. He answers on the second ring. How'd it go with Marsh? Good, we signed. I know you signed. Kwamek texted me at 11:30 a.m. I'm asking how it went. I said, good, Dad. A pause. The kind of father does when he's deciding whether to push. Kwame also told me you got there by helicopter. Yes. Your pilot had a broken wrist. Yes. So who flew you? She looks at her ceiling. A member of the facilities team, she says. The pause this time is longer. Zara. He was qualified. How qualified? Soldier's medal, qualified. Silence on the line. Elias Kensington has been in the aviation industry for 40 years. He knows exactly what that means. He's on the janitorial staff, Zara says.
Night
Shift, she adds. The silence has a texture now. Zara. Her father's voice does a thing it only does when he's not sure whether to be concerned or impressed. It goes slightly lower, slightly slower. What are you not telling me? Nothing. A beat. Everything's fine. Good night, Dad. She hangs up, sits with the phone in her lap. Thinks about calling back to tell him the rest. The stairwell. The container of rice. The way Noah had his face pressed against the glass of the display case, and Caleb had crouched down and said, you got the tail boom right. Doesn't call back. Files it in the same folder as everything else. Keeps filling it. Thursday night. Or midnight, Zara is on the 14th floor again. She is not here because of Caleb Monroe. She is here because there is a certification renewal for 2 of their aircraft that needs to be submitted by end of month, and the documentation is on her laptop, and her laptop is here. This is true. This is completely true. She is not wandering, okay? She is maybe a little wandering. She passes the hallway where the display case is. She does not slow down. She continues to the sim room. She has a reason to be in the sim room. The certification documentation, which she just remembered, must is actually in select server, not on a laptop. But she is already here, so. The lights in the sim room are motion activated. When she opens the door, they blink on. The room is a mid-sized space with 2 flight simulator rigs against the far wall, the kind that replicate cockpit environments for training, with instrument panels and control systems and screens that can reproduce weather conditions and various air emergency scenarios. Standard equipment for an aviation company. She's walked through this room 100 times. But something is. She doesn't know what at first. Then she sees it. On the seat off the left simulator, the one Caleb fixed, there's a child's drawing. Torn from left get face out, he picks it up. A helicopter. Recognizable even at whatever level of realism a 3-year-old can produce. Bubble cockpit, tail boom, rotor blades rendered in enthusiastic brown crayon. In the seat, a stick figure with long arms. Beside the helicopter on the ground, a smaller stick figure with what appears to be very large eyes. At the top, in the irregular block letters of someone who has just learned that letters make words.
She stands there holding this piece of paper, Dadyfly, like a capture for a life she didn't know existed until 5 days ago. She puts the drawing back exactly where she found it, leaves the room, goes back to her office, sits down,
stares at her laptop for 11 minutes without opening it, then picks up her phone, pulls up the internal directory, finds the cell number on file, Caleb Monroe, stares at it, does not call.
Types instead, I'd like to meet tomorrow. My office, and I'm not late to performance, just a conversation. Since his response comes back in 4 minutes.
Okay, 1 word, no punctuation. She stares at the okay for longer than she should, okay.
Right.
He comes in at 10 sharp, still in the gray uniform, which she is looking at him now in daylight for the first time, is because his shift ended at 6, and he has presumably been wherever he goes between 6 and 10. Which she does not know. He has Noah's sketchbook under his arm. She blinks. Sorry, he says. Daycare pickups at 12. I have him until the... As if registering that the CEO's corner office is probably not child optimized. I can come back, no. She shakes her head. Sit down. Both of you. Noah looks at her. He has been looking at her since they walked in. The particular unflinching assessment that very small children perform on strangers. Evaluating on criteria that adults have forgotten they ever had. He sits in the chair next to his father, opens the sketchbook, starts drawing, just like that, immediately. Like the decision to draw was made before Mr. Forian entered the room, and it's simply of menu. Zara looks at Caleb. Caleb looks back at her. Postal Tech reached out, she says. Okay, about you. A very slight shift in his expression. Not alarm exactly. More like, I was wondering when this would happen. They want to bring in a consultant for their new pilot training program. But someone with real field experience to work with the engineers designing their simulator systems. She slides a folder across the desk. 6-month contract. I can tell you the figure, but I think you should see secrets down now. He doesn't open the folder. Flexible hours, she continues. Postally remote. You could set your own schedule around. She glances at Noah, who is drawing with complete focus. Around whatever you need. Caleb is quiet. She waits. This is something she has learned about him in a very short time. He doesn't fill silence. He sits inside it until he's ready just to move, and then he moves. No performance of consideration. It's just actual consideration. Why are you doing this, he says. Because you're wasted. No, I'm not sharp. Just clear. Why are you doing this? She meets his eyes. Because I found out who you are, she says. And I sat with that for 3 days.
And I'm still sitting with it. He looks at her for a long moment. Then you know I left it behind. I know you put it down, she says. That's not the same thing. That's in his face. Quick! Like a card being turned over and then turned back. He picks up the folder, opens it, looks at the number, closes it. No, he says. Zara blinks.
No, thank you. Can I ask? I don't need to be seen. He says it without defensiveness, just fact. The tone of a man who has made a decision so thoroughly that explaining it costs him nothing. I don't know if that's something that doesn't I need to know it to be okay. That's it. That's the whole list. He sit. It's on S. That's number S. Caleb, he look at her. Just looks at her. And she runs out of argument. Not because she doesn't have one. Because she suddenly, inconveniently understands exactly what he's saying. The logic of it. The particular iron of a man who has decided that less is the safest way to lose less. She knows that logic. She has lived by a version of it for 3 years. Okay, she says. He nods. Starts to stand. You don't have to disappear to protect him, she says. He stops. Doesn't turn around right away. Stays half standing, one hand on the arm of the chair. You can be both things, she says. A father, a pilot. He strains. Turns. His face is doing something. But not all the way controlled, not quite. I appreciate what you're trying to do, he says. I'm not trying to do anything, I'm just saying what's true. He looks at her for one more long moment. Then he picks up Noah's sketchbook from the chair. The boy has abandoned it. He is now standing at the window, looking down at the city with the utter absorption of someone seeing it from its angle for the first time. And holds out his hand. Come on, bud. Time to go. Noah takes his father's hand without looking away from the window for one final second. Then he looks at Zara. You have a lot of windows, he says. I do, she says. You can see all the planes from here. You can. Nods, satisfied. Like this confirms something he suspected. They leave. Zara sits in her empty office with the closed folder on the desk in front of her. She thinks he said no. She thinks, of course, as he said no. She thinks, you can be both things. She said that out loud. To one who has clearly and deliberately and with considerable thought decided not to be. She was forceful as roar. Goes back to work. Tells herself that's the end of it. It's not. 2 weeks pass. In those 2 weeks, several things happen that Zara will later identify as the weeks she stopped pretending she wasn't paying attention. She finds out that Caleb has been splitting his days between the night shift and whatever informal childcare arrangement he can construct. A neighbor who takes Noah 3 mornings a week, a church program on Tuesdays, the rest managed by shifting his schedule around Noah's schedule with the precision of someone solving a daily logistics problem that most people don't know exists. She finds out because Kwam mentions casually in passing, while giving her a facilities update, that Monroe has requested a shift adjustment 3 times in the past month to accommodate what he calls personal scheduling. All 3 times approved. All 3 times adjustments of less than 90 minutes, never affecting building coverage. Why are you telling me this? She asks Kwame. Kwame looks at her with the expression of someone who knows exactly why he's telling her this, but has decided to let her figure it out. Just flagging it, he says, for operational awareness. She gives him a look. He leaves. She thinks about a man solving a daily logistics problem, alone, with no margin for error. She thinks about the neighbor and the church program and the shift adjustments of less than 90 minutes. She thinks, covers the gaps.
Clubs lost, nobody uses main pieces. Janitor.
What's thought? She says no right to do anything with it. But it stays with her the way certain things do, not in the front of her mind, where she can address it, but somewhere lower. Somewhere that hums quietly while she's in meetings and reviewing contracts and answering emails at 11 p.m. Somewhere that is waiting for her to catch up. The night she finds him in the simulator room. Not the drawing. After the drawing. Kiski 3 weeks after the office conversation. Thursday. She's genuinely, actually, not as a text, working late in quarterly reports. She's been on the 14th floor for 4 hours. It's past 1 in the morning. She goes to the water fountain at the end of the hall. On her way back, she passes the simulator room. The door is closed. The light inside is on, so she can see the glow under the door, which is unusual because the room is locked and stops up. Door. The light is definitely on. She opens it. Kalb is sitting in the left simulator seat, not doing anything, not running a program, not testing anything. Just sitting in the cockpit with his hands in his lap, staring at the dark screens in front of him and his shoulders.
She's never seen sinful filters like this.
This man who moves through the building with a consistency that is almost architectural, always is the same, always contained, always the particular steadiness of someone who has decided steadiness is load-bearing. His shoulders are shaking. Not a lot. Not the dramatic shaking of someone letting go completely. The precise opposite. The shaking of someone holding on with everything they have, and the effort of holding on is showing anyway. Zara stands in the doorway. She should back out. She should close the door, go back to her desk and pretend she saw nothing. And tomorrow they will both be in this building. This moment won't have happened. She knows that. She does not do that. She steps into the room, sits down in the right seat. The 2 simulator chairs face the same direction, same instrument panel, same darkened screens, same view of nothing. She sits beside him, not looking at him. Looking at what he's looking at, which is the blank screens and whatever is behind them that she can't see. He knows she's there. He doesn't say anything. Doesn't move. But his breathing changes slightly. The breathing finishes when you're aware of another person in a space where you thought you were alone. They sit like that for a while. A minute maybe longer. Then he says quietly to the dark screens, I come in here sometimes.
Okay, she says, seat. He pauses. It's the same fear by fluid. Freaking position. It's the same. It's close enough that
He stops.
I don't fly it, he says. I just sit here. I know, she says.
He turns his head and looks at her, a real look. The kind that takes a moment because it's not transactional. Tonight's her birthday, he says. She doesn't ask who. She doesn't need to. How old would she be, Zara says. 31. 3JC says older than Zara. Still a child, practically. Still supposed to do things ahead of her that didn't happen. I'm sorry, Zara says. I know. Go quiet again. And here's where something changes. Not in a way you could photograph. Not in a way that would be visible from outside. But in the room, in the particular air of a space that is just 2 people being on it and in the dark, something shifts. He speaks. And he doesn't stop. Not fast. Not uncontrolled. Just like something that has been stored for and prepped for a very long time being allowed release at a controlled rate. I was in Germany when she called me, he says. Last voicemails. She was driving home from mother's. She told me she'd had a good day, that Noah had been moving a lot that afternoon. She said she couldn't wait for me to meet him. He stops. Starts again. I didn't get the voicemail until 6 hours later. By then she'd already been gone for 4 hours. And Noah was in the ICU. A pause. He was 8 weeks early. 2 pounds is 11 ounces. I didn't meet him until he was 6 days old because I couldn't get a flight out sooner. And when I finally walked into that NICU, his voice doesn't break. It does something else. It goes very quiet, very level. The levelness of someone who has described something so many times inside their own head that the words have been worn smooth. He had wires everywhere. He was so small, and I thought, I don't know anything about this. I don't know how to do any of this. I know how to fly on the ground every commercial pilot in the country. I know how to land with one engine and a crosswind and someone bleeding in the seat next to me. And I have no idea. He stops. I had no idea how to be the only person left. Zara is very still. I also left the thing about it, he says, because I couldn't be a cockpit without hearing a voice. And I found work didn't require me to be anything. I kept no alive. And I tried to just, another pause, just be enough for him. Even if I wasn't anything else anymore. The room is quiet. Outside, somewhere far below, a delivery truck makes a turn on Peachtree. The sound comes up filtered through glass and distance. Zara looks at her hands. Darnell left the day I signed the papers, she says. Case was quiet. Listening 3 years ago, he didn't fight, didn't argue, just packed and left a note that said he didn't want to be second. And I thought, she almost stops, doesn't. I thought, okay, I know how to run a company. I know how to read a contract and close a deal and sit across from men who don't think I belong in the room and make them change their minds. I'm good at that. She looks up. But I stopped doing anything I wasn't good at because if you only show up where you're certain you can't lose. She says it like a confession, because it is. Tell me. No, not Lily says. It's not a judgment, just an observation. The way you'd say the sky is gray tonight. No, she says. It's not. They look at each other, in the simulator cockpit, facing the same dark screens. Two people who came to the same conclusion from opposite directions. Neither of them says what the moment is. Neither of them has to. Go home, she says, finally.
Johnny.
It's past 1. Noah's at the neighbor's tonight, he says. She takes him on birthdays. She blinks. You told her, she figured it out. First year I worked here. She just started doing it. He pauses. Some people pay attention. That lands somewhere specific. Yeah, Zara says. They do. She stands up. He stands up. Out of the simulator room and down the hall into silence, and at the elevator she presses the down button and they wait. Kelly, Sam, she says. You didn't fail him, she says. No, you didn't fail him. He doesn't answer right away. Then, I know, a beat. Some days I know that better than others. The elevator doors open. They both get in. The doors close. 31 floors down to the lobby, and neither of them says another word, and somehow that is exactly right. Kensington arrive on a Tuesday morning, without calling, which is his particular form of power move. The surprise appearance, the entrance without preamble, the immediate atmosphere of, we're going to talk about the thought you've had more time before we talked about. He is 72 years old, silver-haired, still takes up a room the way a piece of furniture takes up a room. Not by moving, but by simply being there with a kind of solidity that rearranges the space around it. He built this company from a single aircraft maintenance license in a van with the Kensington Aerospace hand-painted on the side because he couldn't afford to have it printed. He did it when people told him he couldn't. When they moved him to back tables at meetings and made him wait in lobbies and told him he was impressive for someone in his position, which is the kind of compliment that isn't. He walks into every single one of those rooms and did what he came to do. His daughter knows exactly where she learned that. He comes in without knocking, so he sets a folder on her desk, sits down in the chair across from her. He says, "Good morning, Zara," says Pilot, he says. She looks at him. "Who told you?" "Kwame texted me. I need to talk to Kwame about that. You need to talk to me about what's going on." Elias opens the folder. Inside, a printed email chain, internal security reports. Photographs from the building cameras, the lobby, the simulator room hallway, the stairwell, which she does not remember being on camera but apparently is. She looks at the photographs, then at her father. "You're having the building surveilled?" "I'm keeping track of my investment. This is my building, and I'm your father." He leans forward. "Zara, you let a man I've never heard of fly our aircraft. You've met with him multiple times without HR. You're in this building at 1 a.m. So are you, apparently, for reviewing camera timestamps." He stops. She holds his look. He's a facilities employee, says. He has a child. He has history you don't know. I know his history. Then I know exactly who is Dad. She leans forward now. Same posture, like looking in a slightly different mirror. Soldier's medal. 2 deployments. Wife died. Son born premature while he was overseas. He has been keeping that child alive by himself for 5 years, and he does it so well and so quietly that nobody in this building knew he existed until he saved an 11 knockout contract and 9 minutes flat. Elias is quiet. "And you want to tell me what?" "Exactly," she says. "That he's not worth my time. I want to tell you to be careful." "About what?" "Confusing gratitude with it's not gratitude." She says it before she means to. Hears it land in the air. Doesn't take it back. It's not gratitude, it's recognition, which is different, and which is something that she stops, recalibrates, something that I was not doing, that I should have been doing, and I'm trying to correct that. Elias looks at her for a long time. She looks back. "If you tell me he's not suitable for this family," she starts. "I wasn't going to say that, because I will Zara." He says her name in the tone he uses when he needs her to listen. Not commanding. Something more precise. Requesting. I wasn't going to say that. She stops. He leans back, puts his hands in the arms of the janitor, and does something she wasn't expecting. He tells us about Jerome Williams, best aircraft mechanic Elias Kensington ever knew. Worked with him in the early years when the van had hand-painted lettering and meetings happened in parking lots. When Elias started getting real contracts, real clients, real money, Jerome asked if there was a place for him. Management. Oversight. Something commensurate with what he contributed, and said no. Because Jerome wasn't qualified, because Ez didn't trust him, because Ez was afraid of what the board would think, of the optics, of being accused of favoritism, of jeopardizing what he'd built by seeming to put loyalty above professionalism. He told Jerome it wasn't the right time. Jerome left, built his own company, did very well, better than well. 3 years later, Elias called him. Jerome answered, listened to everything Elias said, then said, I don't hold it against you, Elias. But I haven't forgotten it either, and hung up. I spent 40 years in an industry that told me what I was worth based on what I looked like, Elias says. And then I turned around and did the same thing to someone else because I was scared. He looks at his hands. See what I'm doing with this man downstairs. And I don't know how to stop before it happens. But I know how it looks from the outside because I've been on the outside. Zara's quite short. So I'm not here to tell you he's not suitable, Elias says. Because I'm your father and I'm trying to figure out if I'm protecting you or protecting myself, and I'm not sure I know the difference anymore. The room is very still. Zara looks at him for a long time. You built this whole place, she says quietly, and you're still carrying what it felt like before you did. He doesn't answer, which is an answer. She stands up, goes around the desk, and for the first time in longer than she can accurately recall, she hugs her father. Not a greeting hug, not a goodbye hug. Something more honest than both of those. He puts his arms around her. They stand there for a moment. Just a father and a daughter who are both, in their own ways, learning the same lesson at the same time. Don't make Jerome's mistake, she says into his shoulder. He doesn't say anything, but she feels him nod. The Voltec email arrives on a Friday. Not to Zara, to Caleb. She finds out because he comes to her office and stands in the doorway, still in a grey uniform. No on his hip because it's a Saturday and the building is quiet and he needed to come in for something, so I've brought the boy. And holds up his phone so she can see the screen. She reads it, then reads it again. Voltec Industries, in partnership with its aviation development program, is pleased to a demonstration of their annual innovation summit in front of investors, engineers, media. A live showcase of precision aviation to anchor their new pilot training initiative. In exchange, a full academic scholarship for one Noah Monroe to begin in the fall at Whitmore Academy, Atlanta's most academically rigorous private school. Tuition and materials fully covered through grade 12. Reads it a third time. He says, "What face? This is from you," he says. "I introduce your name. Voltec made their own decisions. Zara." They look at each other over Noah's head. The boy is examining something he found in his jacket pocket. A flat stone, smooth, which he is now sourcing buttons on his father's uniform, with the deep concentration of some conducting meaningful research. "I don't need to be rescued," Caleb says. "I know," she says. "You've said that. I mean it. I know you mean it."
She steps forward, and I'm not rescuing him. I'm not even rescuing him.
Adds that Noah, who looks up briefly, registers adult conversation, goes back to the stone button comparison. "I'm giving him an option that wouldn't have existed otherwise. What you do with it is yours." He looks at the phone, looks at his son. "What if I fall apart up there?" he says, very quiet, not Trosopholok.
And actually, some person has been inside the wreckage of some of his oil to trust himself it is not sure the structure has been rebuilt.
"You won't," she says. "You don't know that." "I was in the passenger seat," she says. 9 minutes over Atlanta traffic with someone who hadn't flown in 5 years, and you flew like you hadn't stopped. Like your body just picked up where your mind left off. She holds his gaze. "You won't fall apart if you don't feel like you will. That's different." Noah holds up the stone. Noah announces. They both look at him. "What? This looks like a biscuit." Noah examines it again. Not a good one. Caleb looks at his son. The stone, the serious face, the utterly committed biscuit analysis. Something in him, Zara can see it, can actually watch it happen, releases. Not the grief or the war for what you are the phrase of all just. A fraction of the tension that lives permanently across his shoulders.
Are you there?
He asks. Every second, she says. He takes the phone back, looks at the email one more time, puts it in his pocket. Not grand, not resolved, just okay. As in, I will do this terrifying thing because the reason to do it is standing next to me weighing a rock against his coat buttons. Okay, she says. Holds the stone out to Sir.
You want it?
He says, I don't need it. She takes it. Warm from his pocket, smooth, perfectly ordinary. Thank you, she says. Noah nods. Philanthropic, please. They leave. Zarifus stands in her office with a child's flat stone in her palm and thinks about what it means to be the only person in the room when someone decides to step back in the light, and whether that mate may be responsible for what comes next, or whether it just makes you. Witness. She thinks witness is enough. Thinks witness might be everything. She closes her hand around the stone, goes back to work. The night before the Voltec summit, Caleb doesn't sleep. This is not new. He has not slept through a full night in 5 years. Most nights there is a shape to the wakefulness, a pattern he knows, a ceiling he has memorized, the crack in the plaster above the bedroom door. The streetlight comes through the curtain at a specific angle between 2 and 3 a.m. The sound of Noah breathing through the monitor he still uses, even though the pediatrician said he didn't need it anymore. He still uses it. He needs to hear his digital breathing. Because some losses teach you to verify what you love is still there. Tonight the ceiling looks the same. The streetlight comes in the same. Breathe steadily through the monitor. Small sounds, untroubled. But Caleb's chest is doing something he recognizes. The thing it does before something that matters. He's this feeling. He felt it before every deployment. Before every mission with conditions that left no margin. It is not exactly fear. It is the body's way of saying, pay attention. This is real. This counts. He gets up at 2 a.m., sits at the kitchen table. The apartment is small. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that is also the dining room, a living room that is also as north if you define territory as. The area currently containing 17 toy vehicles, a tower of foam blocks, and a plastic helicopter with a broken rotor that Caleb has fixed 3 times, and Noah has broken 3 times with the cheerful efficiency of someone who finds the cycle delightful. On the counter, a photograph. Imani. Not formal.
A phone photo printed at the drugstore, stuck to the fridge with a magnet shaped like the state of Georgia. She is laughing at some sort of camera, hugely openly, with a whole voice. The kind of laugh that makes you want to know what the joke was years later.
Caleb looks at it for a while. Then he gets up, goes to the closet, reaches to the top shelf past a shoebox he hasn't opened in 2 years. Past folded fabric at the very back. A jacket. Imani's gray, oversized, soft from years of washing. It still sees something that is almost but not quite her smell. The almost is the buck the court costs him. He doesn't put it on. He just holds it in the doorway of the closet with the light off. Then he hears the small sound from the bedroom. Noah, not crying, not distressed, just awake. 3-year-olds have radar for the moments their fathers are standing in the dark. Nobody tells you this. It simply happens, Daddy. Caleb puts the jacket on the kitchen chair. Goes into the bedroom. Noah sees missing stuff belts, launches the rolling smell side. Sometime for dinosaur, she said Charlie chose, they shot it to that target with the seriousness of a decision that would affect daily life. He is holding Captain the Bear. He looks at Caleb with the direct, undefended gaze of a child who has not yet learned that nighttime feelings should be managed rather than expressed. You're not sleeping, Noah observes. Neither are you.
I woke up. Since obtaining reposition from the human since evidence him finding something the water fountain for.
Noah says, Kalipal, he says, this is the truth. He does not lie to Noah. He'd decided early in the ICU in the first terrible weeks, standing over an incubator looking at something impossibly small that was his responsibility entirely, that he would not lie to his son about the things that mattered. Simplified, yes, but not false. I get scared too, Noah says, with the gravity of a peer sharing hard-won wisdom. When I went down the big slide at Settlement on top, and that one is very tall, I know. But then I did it. He pauses, and it was good. And Blood looks at the shut-up Ken's head, the dark curls, the warmth of a child leaning against you at 2 a.m. when the world is very quiet. Is Mama going to be there tomorrow? Noah asks. Not sad, just asking. The way he sometimes asks, with a matter-of-fact openness that stops Caleb's heart every time. because it is the most honest thing in his life. This child's relationship with something he cannot fully understand. She won't be there where we can see, Caleb says. But maybe other ways? Maybe other ways? Noah considers this, nods once, satisfied. Then you should sleep, Noah says. So you fly good. Not fly well. Fly good.
3 years old and already understanding that this is not about technique. Caleb puts his arm around his son. Noah closes his eyes with the absolute efficiency of someone who's said what needs saying and can now return to the business of sleeping. Caleb sits there in the dark for a long time.
He looks at the bedroom door, at the kitchen beyond it, at Imani's jacket on the chair. He doesn't know what tomorrow is going to feel like, but he knows he's going, and he knows why. Sometimes that is the whole architecture of a decision. Not certainty, not readiness, just knowing why and letting that be enough to move. He slays until he's sure Noah is fully under. Then he goes back to the kitchen, sits across from the photograph on the fridge. Imani laughing at something he can't see. I'm going tomorrow, he says to her, quietly, like a report. Like something he's been meaning to say. The part doesn't answer. But in the stillness of 2 a.m. Something loosened as soon as he's going to, not everything. Not the grief or the weight or 5 years of it. Just enough. Just the fraction that was keeping him from breathing all the way down. He closes his eyes and, for the first time and longer than he can accurately remember, he sleeps sitting up at the kitchen table, head on his arms. Jacket still on the chair beside him. The photograph on the fridge catches the street light. Imani still laughing. The Voltec Innovation Summit is held at the Prenet Aviation Campus south of Buckhead. Not a small event. 340 people in the main hangar. Investors, engineers, technology partners. A media contingent with cameras and badge lanyards. And the professional energy of people who get paid to care about things. A secondary viewing area outside for the demonstration. An enormous screen inside for the live feed. Zara arrives 90 minutes early. She is not supposed to arrive 90 minutes early. She's supposed to arrive 15 minutes early, like a professional attending an event where she is a guest, not the person running logistics. And yet, she is on the tarmac 90 minutes early, talking to the Voltec event coordinator about ground clearance and camera positioning and the specific trajectory of the demonstration flight path. Not because she is nervous. She is not nervous. She is nervous. But not about the contract. Not about Voltec or the 11 million or any professional stake she can aim cleanly. She is nervous in the way you are nervous about something that has nothing to do with resume and everything to do with June 4 times in the car on the way for no reason you're willing to examine. At 8:45, a vehicle pulls into the lot. The Honda Accord, 2015, cracked left taillight. Park from across the tarmac without moving toward it. Watches the door open. Caleb gets out first. He's in his flight suit, dark, fitted, worn in the way that means it has been worn before in situations that mattered. He looks, standing in the morning light, like someone arrived somewhere he was always supposed to be. Which is, she needs a second. She turns back to the event coordinator and finishes the sentence she was in the middle of. Then Caleb opens the back door and Noah gets out. 3 years old, dinosaur sneakers. A smaller, flat theater goggles pushed up on his forehead. He's the skepper. Oh, of course he is. He looks around the airfield with the expression of someone who has been drawing a place from imagination and is now calibrating against reality. Zara crosses the tarmac. Hey, she says, hey. Caleb says. They look at each other, not saying the things they could say, not needing to. Nice goggles, she says to Noah. Noah pushes them down over his eyes and his everything's yellow, he reports. Is that good yet? She asks. Looks at Caleb's. She looks back. There is something in his face this morning. Not the absence of fear. The presence of both things simultaneously. The knowledge of what this is and the decision to do it anyway. A combination she recognizes because she has worn it herself on mornings when the stakes were real and the only option was to walk through the door. How are you doing, she says. It's like being might to do something I can't take back. Is that bad? He thinks about it. Actually thinks about it. No, he says. I don't think it is. She nods. He nods. Noah grabs Tfathasisand and pulls in the direction of the aircraft with the urgency of someone who finds idle conversation a poor use of everyone's time. The helicopter is waiting, Noah announces, as if the helicopter has been patient long enough and that patience is now not an
Caleb lets hands to be pulled. Zara watches them walk toward the aircraft.
The man in the flight suit and the 3-year-old in the dinosaur sneakers, holding hands. The child leaning forward against gravity and enthusiasm equally. She presses her hand briefly against her sternum, just for a second. Then she goes to take her position. At 9:55, the hangar goes quiet. Not the quiet of empty space. The quiet of a full room. Something is about to happen. 340 people holding a collective breath without deciding to. Zara is at the edge of the viewing platform with a headset. Ground support. She volunteered for this. The Voltec team seemed mildly surprised. She didn't explain. Noah is standing beside her. He got here by grabbing her hand approximately 4 minutes ago when Caleb walked him over. The handoff was brief. Stay with Zara. Okay, don't run onto the tarmac. I know, Daddy. I mean it.
I know.
And then Caleb looked at her with a look of man and
His most important thing to us and trusting them with it.
and walked toward the aircraft. Noah's hand, hers, is warm, small.
He is vibrating at a frequency somewhere between scientists and the desperate need to explain everything happening around him to someone who listens seriously.
Those are the blades, he tells her. They go around. Yes, that very fast. That's yes. He looks up at us. Hold up, you sucker. Checks she is tracking. I know how helicopters work, he informs her. Daddy explained. I believe you. He turns back to the aircraft, satisfied. On the tarmac, Caleb does a pre-flight check. Methodical, unhurried. Moving around the aircraft in the sequence that is so deep in him it requires no thought. Hand on the tail boom. Check the rotor head. Check the skids. Circle back to the cockpit. Not performing for the crowd. Not aware of the 304 people watching through the hangar doors. Just doing what you do before you fly. Zara watches him and thinks about the parking garage. The morning after the signing, when she sat in her dark office and learned who he was from a phone call that changed the register of everything. She thinks about 8 months of walking past him and looking through him. About all the things that were true that she didn't know though she hadn't looked. She has looked now. She is watching him, carrying all of it, climb into the cockpit because a 3-year-old needs a school that can meet him where he is. Caleb settles into the left seat, puts on the headset. His voice comes through her earpiece. Calm, familiar. The voice she heard for the first time on a roof when the city was gridlocked and everything was about to go wrong. Ground, this is the demonstration aircraft. Ready for startup. She keys her radio.
Cleared for startup. Or weather's clear. Wednesday's like flight out of the northwest coast.
A pause. Not long. 4 seconds, maybe 5. And then through the headset, very quiet. So quiet she almost misses it under the ambient noise of the tarmac. Imani. Just the name. Not a prayer, not an address to anyone living. Just the name said aloud into a frequency out where it can exist as sound rather than only weight. Zara presses her lips together. Does not cry. Is going to cry later. Definitely going to cry later. In her car or her office or the stair called doing between floors on 9 and 10, where she's apparently started getting some more honest moments. Not now. Cleared, she says. Steady. Professional. Exactly the voice of someone doing their job and absolutely nothing else. The engine fires. The rotors begin to turn. Slowly at first. The patience of a machine waking up. Building toward its own velocity. The sound rising from idle to operational until it fills the tarmac and then the air above it. Noah goes completely still. Which is extraordinary. Noah does not go still. Noah's 3, which is a condition defined by the near impossibility of stillness. But as the rotors reach speed, as the sound becomes the thing it fully is, he goes absolutely quiet, watching. The Bell 407 lifts off the ground. And it does not go up. It rises. There is a difference and it matters. Going up implies effort against resistance. Some buzzes have something closer to inevitability. Like watching water find its level. Like watching something return to the state it was always supposed to be in. The helicopter rises. The crowd in the hangar, which has been professional, event quiet. The control people maintaining appropriate distance from their own reactions. The involuntary exhale from 40 people simultaneously understanding that they are watching something they did not expect. Noah's hand tightens in hers. He doesn't say a word. He watches. What Caleb does in the next 12 minutes exists in the Voltec event report as a series of technical maneuvers described in aviation language that is accurate but not the point. The point is not the sequence. The point is the quality. He flies like someone who forgot they were afraid. Or more precisely, like someone who discovered that fear and mastery are not opposites, that you can be terrified of what it means to step back into the life you walked away from and still be completely, absolutely, bone-deep good at it, that the body holds what the mind was trying to release. Precision turns over the compass. A hovering sequence simps so stably the aircraft like it has simply decided to stop in mid-air as a personal preference. Altitude transitions that eat the distance between heights with a smoothness that make gravity look cooperative. A lateral approach so clean it seems like the aircraft is solving a problem it enjoys. Noah begins to move, gently at first, just the small lift of heels. Then more, his hand pulling at hers, the yellow goggles bouncing into his forehead. "That's my daddy," he says, not loudly, to her, privately, looking up with an expression that holds pride and something older than 3 years should be able to carry. A kind of recognition. The look of a child who knew something was true before the adults around him figured it out. "I know," she says. "He's the best pilot." "I know that too." He looks back at the sky. "I told him he could do it," Noah says. "Last night." As he squeezes his hand, he squeezes back. And then he does something she does not expect. He leans against her side. Just leans. The way he leaned against her in the hauling outside the simulator room. The way children lean against people they have decided to trust. Not asking permission, not announcing the decision. Just doing it with the complete complacency of someone who has already worked it out. She puts her arm around him. On the tarmac, the Bell 407 descends.
The skids touch down. The aircraft settles onto the earth with the quality of something that chose to.
Not forced down, not finished. Just done with this particular altitude for now and resting. The hangar erupts. Not the polite applause of an industry event, the real kind. The kind that surprises people as it's coming out of them, because I didn't plan for it to be that full. Caleb cuts the engine. The rotor's slow. He sits in the cockpit before opening the door. Just sits, hands in his lap, looking at the instrument panel in front of him. Zara can see him through the windscreen from here. She does not move toward him. She does not interrupt whatever is happening in that cockpit right now between a man and the version of himself he left behind 5 years ago. He opens the door, steps out, and Noah, whom she told not to run onto the tarmac, who said "I know," but daddy with such conviction, who had clearly been operating on a different definition of the word tarmac this entire time, runs us onto the tarmac, full speed, dinosaur sneakers, yellow goggles, some sideways off his forehead, arms out. Kel drops to one knee, catches his son mid-air, both arms around him. Noah's zigzagging around his father's waist, face buried in his neck, and Caleb holds him. Not a quick hug, not the efficient embrace of someone who has somewhere to be. He holds his son with both arms, and his eyes are closed. And behind them, 340 people are still applauding, and the cameras are rolling, and none of it reaches this small circle of tarmac, where a man is holding his child like the whole world can wait. Because it can. Because this is the only part that was ever actually the point. Zara stands at the edge of the tarmac. Her hand is empty where Noah's was. She lets her face do what it needs to do. She just stopped managing it 2 minutes ago, and she is not starting again now. 3 months pass. The scholarship paperwork for Whitmore Academy takes 6 weeks to finalize. Noah starts in the fall. He is, by all texts, the only student in the junior kindergarten class who arrives at a difference in cyclic and a collective.
As Windsworth explain it to anyone
Who will listen, which is everyone. Because Noah has never met a conversational opening he didn't walk through. His first week, he draws the school from the window of the classroom and labels every building. Not with letters, he is still learning letters. And anyone who thought otherwise at 3 was being optimistic. But with symbols he has invented that apparently mean specific things. A system that his teacher describes in a first parent note as a proprietary cartographic language, confident and internally consistent. Caleb reads the note twice, puts it on the fridge next to Imani's photograph. In those 3 months, Caleb takes the Voltec consulting contract. He does not make this decision overnight. He makes it over the course of several conversations. With Zara, with the neighbor who has been selection on the hard nights, with is asleep, and the apartment is quiet, and the photograph on the fridge is the only company. He decides, finally, on a Tuesday morning, while dropping Noah at school for the 3rd time. Noah runs in without looking back, which is the developmental goal, the healthy thing, the sign that the child feels safe. And Caleb stands in distance watching the door close and thinks, this is what it was for. All of it. The night shift stairwell and the firefighter making himself small enough to be invisible, so that Noah could run through a door without looking back. And now Noah can, so what comes next? He calls Zara on his way to the parking lot. I'll take it, he says. You don't know. Call Club. I've been waiting 3 weeks, just that knowing, because you've been ready for 3 weeks and you needed to get there yourself. A pause. I was giving you time. He stands in the parking lot of Whitmore Academy in the October light. Stop being right about me, he says. I'll try, she says. And he can hear through the phone that she is smiling. I probably won't succeed. He gets into the car. Kansas on aerospace. This time. Not back entrance. Not level B2 with the flickering light and the drain that clears its throat. The front entrance. He sits in the lobby for a moment. The lobby with the glass display case. The Bell 47 on the staircase shelf. The display that Noah had his face pressed against once while a woman came out of an elevator and didn't say a word. He looks at the Bell 47. Then he goes up to the 14th floor, where his name is now on a door. Elias Kensington comes to the office on a Friday in November. He calls first. This is new. In Zara's entire memory of her father, he has never called before coming to the office. He simply arrived, because Elias Kensington has always operated on the assumption that his presence was expected and therefore needed no announcement. The call comes at 8 in the morning. I'm coming in today, he says. Okay, says. I want to meet him. She knows who him is. Okay, she says again. I'm not coming to make a point. He pauses. Pauses. So pauses Van's woman choosing his words with more care than usual. I just want to meet the man my daughter thinks is worth knowing. She is quiet for a moment. He's here at 10, she says. I'll tell him you're coming. Elias arrives at 9:55. He goes directly to the 14th floor, not to Zara's office first, directly to the room where Caleb's name is on the door. He knocks, which is also new. Caleb opens it. The two men look at each other. Elias Kensington, 72 years old, built this company from a maintenance license and a van with hand-painted lettering on the side. He's the kind of man who takes up space without trying, who rearranges a room just by standing in it, who for 40 years walked into rooms where people expected him to fail and did the work anyway. Monroe, 32 years old, standing in a doorway with the same stillness he has always had. The stillness that used to read as invisible and now reads as something else entirely. Neither of them says anything for a moment. Then Elias says, I owe you an apology. Caleb steps out on the door, a gesture. Come in. They sit across from each other in the small office. Outside the window, Atlanta is doing what it does on November mornings, gray and wide and going about its business. I made a judgment before I knew you, Elias says. I made it based on what I saw instead of who you were. And I've spent enough of my life being on the side of that mistake that I should have known better. Caleb is quiet. I'm not asking you to say it's fine, Elias says. It wasn't fine. I just want you to know I know that. Caleb looks at him. The long, steady looks of someone who has had a lot of time to decide what he doesn't need from people who have wronged him. My co-pilot's name was James Fortier, Caleb says. Elias waits. After the accident, when I got the medal, he sent me a letter. Not an angry one. He said he understood I had made the best decision I could with the information I had. He said he didn't blame me. Caleb pauses. And then he said, knowing that you understand what you cost me was more important to me than whether you feel forgiven. Elias holds his gaze. So I'm telling you, Caleb says, that I understand what it costs a person when someone decides what they're worth before they know them. I understand that specifically, and I appreciate that you're here saying this. He doesn't say anything else. He doesn't need to. And Elias Kensington, who built a company, who walked through rooms that tried to diminish him, who spent 40 years being larger than what people expected, sits in a chair across from a 32-year-old man and feels, with great clarity, what it is to be seen accurately. Jerome Williams, Elias says finally. Caleb looks at him, uncertain. Old friend, I did to him what I was about to do to you. I've been carrying that for 20 years. He pauses. I called him last week. How'd that go? Elias makes a sound that is almost a laugh, dry, rueful. The sound of a man who has earned his humility the expensive way. He answered. Elias says, that's more than I deserved. They sit for another few minutes, not saying much. Just two men in a room in November, each one having come to the conversation with something heavy and leaving with something slightly different. Not lighter exactly, but held differently. When Elias stands to leave, he pauses at the door. He looks around the office. At the framed photograph on the desk, Caleb and Noah at what looks like a park, Noah mid-air off a small climbing structure, Caleb below with arms out. How old is he in that? Elias says. 2.5, right after I started here. Elias looks at the photograph for a moment. He's got good air, Elias says. In the jump, good instincts. Caleb looks at the photograph. Yeah, he says he does as Elias leaves. Caleb sits with his puffs for a while after. The November gray at the window, the photograph on the desk, the name on the door. He thinks about James Fortier and the letter that came 6 months after the accident, written in the careful handwriting of a man who had lost the full use of one hand and was learning with the other. He thinks about what it cost Fortier to write it, what it cost him to be generous when he had every right not to be. Thinks about things people carry, and the things they put down, and how sometimes the difference between the two is almost supposing shanking a door and the stomaching. The essay comes home on a Thursday in December. It is in Noah's backpack, fold once, behind the snack container and the library book about turtles that is 3 weeks overdue. Caleb finds it during the backpack excavation that happens every Thursday evening, because if he doesn't do it Thursday, it becomes a situation by Monday. The paper is slightly crumpled. There is a smear of something that might be red crayon or might be ketchup on the corner. It is, nonetheless, one of the most carefully executed documents Caleb has ever seen, because it was executed by Noah's teacher, Mrs. Okafor, who spent 30 years in classrooms and knows that a junior kindergartner with important things to say should have a scribe, and who clearly treated the assessment with the gravity Noah brought to dictating it. At the top, my hero, in large letters, below in Mrs. Okafor's neat handwriting, the words Noah's low spoke. My hero is my daddy. Daddy knows how to fly helicopters and also how to fix them, which is 2 things. Daddy makes breakfast every day, even when he is tired, which is a lot. Daddy lets me name things. I named his car Gerald, and he uses that name now. Daddy sometimes cries at night when he thinks I'm asleep, but in the morning he always makes breakfast, so I think that means he's okay. Caleb stops there for a moment, reads that last sentence again, sets the paper down, picks it up, keeps reading. My other hero was Zara. Zara is not my mama, I know that. But she sat with me on the floor one time when I was scared, and she didn't make me explain why I was scared, which was good because I didn't know why. She gave me a stone one time, and then I gave it back to her because I thought she should have it. She came to watch Daddy fly. She has a sad face, but also a happy face at the same time. I think that is complicated. My teacher says complicated is okay. Ada says Zara sees people. I think that means she looks at you all the way. I think looking at someone all the way is important. That is why she is my hero. Caleb folds the paper very carefully, the same way he folded the letter from James Fortier. The same way he handles things that are small in size and not small in anything else. He puts it in his wallet. And then he sits at the kitchen table for a while. Dalasa is in the living room and on some kind of negotiation between a toy truck and the foam block tower that appears, from the sound effects, to be going poorly for the tower. The photograph on the fridge, Imani laughing, the essay in his wallet, Gerald the car in the parking lot outside. He thinks? She looks at you all the way. He's been looked at all the way exactly twice in his life. Once by Imani, who saw him clearly from the beginning and sees anyway, and asked him to come home and meant it forever. And once by a woman who stood on a rooftop and said something cruel, dressed as a joke, and then spent 3 months quietly becoming a person who sat on a floor with his son in the dark and didn't ask for an explanation. He picks up his phone, types, "Talk tonight if you're free." Sets up again because wants to see if she's responded, even though it's been 11 seconds chance. He puts it face down. She responds 4 minutes later. Noah's at the neighbors. Hey, okay? He looks at the message. Yes, he types. See you then. He puts his phone in his pocket and goes to broker peace between the truck and the tower. The Kensington Aerospace rooftop at 8 p.m. on a Thursday in December. The Bell 407 sits where it always sits, tied down, secured. The city spread below in every direction. The Atlanta December cold is not the dramatic cold of northern cities. It is the cold that surprises you, the kind you underestimated when you left the house, the kind that makes you glad you grabbed the extra layer. Zara gets there first. She stands at the edge of the roof looking at the city. She has been up here hundreds of times, in every weather, in every professional context, waiting for pilots, reviewing flight plans, standing in crisis on a morning when everything was about to fall apart. Tonight is the first time she is up here not knowing exactly what comes next, which is uncomfortable. She's also she's beginning to understand what if it feels like to actually be present. Not prepared, present. She hears the stairwell door. Not in the fleece suit, not in the gray uniform. Just a jacket and the particular ease of someone who has done something large with his life today. The consulting work, the kick-up, the backpack excavation, the tower negotiation. And is still upright in here. Looks at the helicopter, crosses to it, runs his hand along the tail boom. She watches him. You were going to clean it, she says. I wasn't. You were old habits. So some things don't change. Some things do. He turns.
I put Gerald in for the taillight today.
You named your car. No, I named my car. I used the name now. He says it completely without embarrassment. The taillight's been cracked for 8 months. I finally took it in. She looks at him. That's the same cracked taillight from when you started here. Yes, 8 months. I wasn't prioritizing the taillight. No, she says. You were prioritizing other things. He holds her gaze. And this is the thing about Caleb Monroe that she has been trying to find language for since the morning she sat in his cockpit over Atlanta and watched his hands on the controls. He is not performing anything. Not ease. Not confidence. Not openness. He is simply standing in front of her, being exactly what he is, with no gap between the inside and the outside of him. And that quality, that complete absence of performance, is the most disarming she has ever encountered. She has spent her entire adult life in rooms full of people performing things. She did not know she was third for his alternative until she found it in society taking Rithian form at 8:47 on a Monday morning. Noah had a homework assignment, Caleb says. What kind? Write about your hero. He pauses. Mrs. Okafor took dictation. She waits. You were in it, he says. She's quiet. He said you look at people all the way. She has held a lot of things together in her professional life. Rooms full of investors. Negotiations at impasse. The morning the pilot called from the hospital with a broken wrist. She has a real and documented capacity for keeping herself assembled under pressure. She is not in this moment doing that. Her face does what it does. Caleb watches her with the expression of someone is not going to look away and is not going to make it easier by looking away. Can I show you something, he says. He reaches into his jacket pocket and takes out a ring, a silver band, some no stone. For kind for what what it announces. She can see even from here that it is not new, as the qualities of such a thing carried for a long time. She doesn't move. It was Imani's, he says. Her wedding band. I've been carrying it since I couldn't leave it behind, but I also couldn't put it anywhere. I thought those were the only 2 options. He looks at it in his palm.
I've been thinking there might not be. She looks at the ring and then...
What does the inside say, she says. Steps forward, was our fault. 2 words. Imani engraved before Caleb deployed. Come on. And he had carried it through 5 years of everything that came after. Not as a reason to stay stop. As a direction. Always as a direction. She looks up. I had it resized, he says. 6 weeks ago, after the night in the simulator room, after you said, she holds his gaze. 6 weeks, she says. I wanted to be ready if I was. Were you not? I was sure about you.
He says it simply.
I wasn't sure I was allowed to be sure about anything yet. She understands this. She understands this in a specific way. It's asked with the question of what was Jones is allowed to want after the things that happened. After Darnell and the note and the years of building something excellent and completely alone.
Caleb.
I'm asking you to be anything other than what you are, he says. I'm asking if you want to be in the same direction as me. That's all. Same direction. Not same history. Not same grief. Not same anything except the compass heading. Pointing toward each other when the alternative is pointing away. She thinks about a man who carried his wife's name in his wallet for 5 years and set it into a radio frequency like a report before flying in front of 300 people. Thinks about a child handing her a flat stone like it was currency that mattered. She thinks about a folder on her father's desk and a letter that had said proud of who you are choosing to be. She holds up her hand. He places the ring in her palm, warm from being carried. Slides it to a fit. She looks at it, simple. Come home on the inside, worn smooth from years against his skin. Yes, she says, just yes. He closes the distance between them, and she lets him, and they stand there on the roof of a building in December with the city blue going in all directions. being exactly what it's complicated. Full of people who don't know each other yet and will. They don't say anything else for a moment. They don't need to. Then the stairwell door opens. They both turn Noah. Approximately 3 feet tall, Dyson sneakers, the yellow aviator goggles on his forehead, holding a bunch of yellow grocery store chrysanthemums that are slightly too large for him, which means he is carrying them by leaning back against their weight like a very small person counterbalancing a very important cargo. He looks at them, looks at his father, looks at Zara, looks at the ring on her finger, nods once. The nod of someone whose information has been confirmed. I helped pick, he says. Caleb stares at him. You knew. The smooth one, Noah says, pointing at the ring. I said that one. He looks at Zara. You love it, she says. He holds out the flowers. These are also for you, he says. I picked yellow because yellow is good. He tilts his head. Also the stone. You kept the stone. So I knew yellow was right. She takes the flowers. He nods again, philanthropic. The bearing of a consultant who gave good advice and is seeing it implemented correctly. Then he walks to his father, holds out his arms. Caleb picks him up. Noah settles against his shoulder and looks out at the city with the serious satisfaction of someone surveying a completed project. It's 8 p.m., Caleb says. The sky is still there, Noah says. Zara looks at Caleb. He looks at her. They look at Noah, who is looking at the helicopter with the expression of a man who has masturbated long enough and has ever to parent exactly no more. He's not wrong, she says. Caleb shakes his head. But he is smiling. Not the managed version. Not the one directed at Noah for reassurance or at the world for its benefit. The kind that arrives before you can decide about it. They get in the helicopter. Caleb in the left seat, Zara in the right. Noah in the back, buckled into the harness with his sketchbook already open at his knee. The goggles down over his eyes, ready. The engine hums, the rotors turn. The city falls away below them. Atlanta in December. The grid of lights. The highways running out in every direction. The clusters of neighborhoods in the green spaces. And the downtown town towers catching the last of the evening. All of it going on. All of it continuing the way cities do, regardless. Noah begins to draw. She can see him in the reflection of the front panel. Bent over the sketchbook. Crayon moving with purpose. She does not look to see what he's drawing. She already knows. She looks forward instead, at the sky ahead, dark and clear and going exactly as far as it goes.
Where do you want to go, Caleb says.
She looks at him, at this man, at what he has carried and what he has put down and what he is choosing to carry now. At the ring on her finger that says, come home in worn silver. At the city below them full of stairwells where someone eats alone and lobbies where watchers press their faces against glass and see something magnificent in parking garages where a father sits for 6 minutes looking at his sleeping son before he can make himself go in and start the day. At all the things that happen when nobody's watching and the ones that happens when someone finally is. Anywhere, she says, and means it completely. The helicopter climbs, steady, in the direction they have chosen. Below them, cities on being itself. Above them, the sky opens the way it always has, wide and dark and full of nothing that will stop them.
No, a sketchbook without being asked to test.
3 figures. A helicopter rendered with the confidence and accuracy of someone who knows exactly what he means, even if the proportions is still a work in progress. The large figure in the pilot's seat, the medium figure beside him, the small figure in the back with the enormous eyes and the goggles and what appears to be a very large box. Below the drawing in Mrs. Okafor's handwriting, because Noah had planned this, had asked his teacher to write the word for him at school today, had carried the paper in his jacket pocket all afternoon, one word, US. She looked at it for a long time. The sketchbook, the crayon figures, the one careful word written by a teacher for a child who knew what he wanted to say and just needed help with the letters. She faces forward, the sky ahead, going on, which turns out to be exactly enough.